Hello.
I'm Barry from Watford.
No, you're not.
I'm Craig Fields.
And I'm David Long.
And you're listening to week 60 of Is It Worth It, the film review podcast.
We've gone out of our way to see as many films in the cinema, even some of the bad ones, and there is a bad one on this week's show, so you, the listener, doesn't have to.
We certainly have. David, let's tell the listeners what we have got in store for them today.
Oh, well, on today's show, first up, we've got Free Guy, which sees Ryan Reynolds discover he's actually a non-player character in a cutthroat open-world video game. He stars alongside Jodie Comer, Joe Keery, and Taika Waititi.
I've thrown you off already, haven't I?
That's a tongue-twisting tirade.
Then we're taking a look at James Gunn's latest outing with the Suicide Squad. This shouldn't be confused with Suicide Squad. This one sees some of the most dangerous and perhaps not so dangerous supervillains take on a large starfish creature from outer space and the army of Corto Maltese.
Then we're travelling down the Great River with Emily Blunt and The Rock in Jungle Cruise in search of an ancient tree that holds the power to heal.
Excellent. We get old. M. Night Shyamalan. I can never say his
M. Night Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. There we go. Shyamalan returns to cinema screens in a thriller about family that are on a tropical holiday and end up on a beach with a few other people.
Yep.
But this is no ordinary beach.
Yep.
This beach has the ability to make them age rapidly.
Yes, it does, and we will rapidly assess this film later in the show. I'm looking forward to it.
It stars Thomasin McKenzie, Gael Garcia Bernal, Alex Wolff, Vicky Krieps, and Rufus Swell.
Craig then takes on Matt Damon in Stillwater, which sees
toe-to-toe, David, toe-to-toe,
which sees an oil rig roughneck travel to Marseille, which is in France, to visit his estranged daughter, who is in prison for a murder she claims she didn't commit.
And then we both end the show with CODA, which sees a young girl, being the only hearing person in her family, have to decide between a future for her family, or a future with her family, shall I say, or going off to live her own life. This stars Amelia Jones, Marley Matlin, Troy Kotsur, Daniel Durant, and Ferdia Walsh-Pilo.
You're correct.
I am right. In this Apple TV Plus original movie. You know, we are so bad at pronouncing people's names.
We are.
Notably me. I do practice beforehand and I get it spot on beforehand and then somehow I regress.
We both practice, but Craig, alas, we are a little rusty. It's been a while.
It's always been a while. Every time we open the show, it's been a while.
But we've got busy lives. Things have been happening. And
big things have been happening.
Incredibly big things have been happening.
I mean,
Barry from Watford!
No, that's a bad impression. Alex Lowe is Barry from Watford, a character, and is, oh, Craig, I'm Barry from Watford.
Spot on. Craig was on BBC Three Counties Radio with Barry from Watford. It was a really good listen. Craig, you did a great job on that. But that isn't the news, Craig. That is not the big news.
No, you've had COVID.
Well, yes. I did have COVID.
And it says here mental health.
Yeah, so...
You've had mental health?
No, I just wanted to touch upon...
Sorry, that was in poor taste.
That was a really bad taste for you. You've had mental health? Come on, Craig, you should know better than that.
I really should.
No, so in the notes of things to talk about, it's got David has COVID and David's mental health. Yeah, so I had COVID. Physically, obviously, I had a rough sort of 4 or 5 days, but mentally it was quite tough. Being on my own, you know, I live alone for 10 days. And yeah, my mental health isn't great at the moment. Craig is
Was it a little bit like Castaway at home?
Yeah.
Did you grow a massive beard?
I mean, I've just shaved, actually, as you can see. I've got a lovely trimmed beard. But no, it was just tough. Physically, I've been iller, but mentally, it was difficult because I think it was you said to me, like, 4 or 5 days, I probably wouldn't have gone out anyway. But it was just that knowing you couldn't go out. My flat doesn't have any sort of outside space, so I literally didn't see daylight for 10 days, turned into a vampire.
You have got windows.
I have, yeah, but I didn't want to open them and just spread COVID into the world, so...
Yeah, but you could have lifted the blinds up.
Well, I just had people looking in on me, looking sorry for myself.
And like an animal.
Like a penned up wild animal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and Craig can tell I'm suffering a lot with anxiety at the moment. I'm very nervous here in the studio.
Yeah, I'm in all honesty, I shouldn't have made that joke.
No,
but I can definitely see that there is a bit of anxiety going on there. But we'll get through the show together.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I just wanted to say on the theme, on the topic of mental health, if you are struggling at all, I am, as is Craig, are always here for a chat for you, wonderful listener, if you need it. But let's stop, distracting and dodging the subject. There has been some huge, tremendous news and announcement, an event. Do you want me to tell the listener what's happened, or would you like to say?
I should probably announce it.
I think you should.
What was the date? Let's have a look.
Oh, you need to remember that.
I mean, yeah, that is a significant date in the world of my life. It would have been August the 28th, 2021. I proposed an engagement to Charis. We are engaged. We are due to be wed in due course.
Congratulations and jubilations and celebrations indeed, dearest Craig. Honestly, when I found out, the first thing I text Craig was no.
It was actually no.
Not as in, this, just to clarify, not as in like, no, you can't do this. It was like, no. Like, wow, that's amazing. But it didn't come across that way, so I apologise for that. Craig was like, I'm married, and I was like, no, you're not. You're not married, engaged, no, you're not. What else has been happening? Well, film festival.
Well, that was a quick chat about that.
well, I don't know what else can be said. You're due to be wed. It's going to be a great day. I like weddings, drinks all around. Apart from me.
Apart from you.
Another joke in poor taste.
Do you think you'd be invited?
I would hope so.
Do you think you'd be my best man?
I don't know.
I don't know either, to be honest with you. These are all things that when you get engaged...
You should have said you're not the best man.
No, I wouldn't
definitively live on air.
No.
You're struggling. This has been really poor taste so far.
I know, but it's funny. To see you squirm.
Do you think you'll be the best man? No. Chance.
No, people... This is the weird thing about getting engaged. Like, people tend to... There's like 3 different people that you come across. There's the... all in like friends, of course. Yeah. They all say the first group of people are incredibly happy for you and ask a gazillion questions about, when's the wedding going to be? Or let's have a look at the ring. Or let's have a look at this. Oh, what's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? La la la. And then you have that kind of group of people. They're that's nice, but it's a bit over the top for us. And then you've got the middle group of people who are really happy for you, but don't go into so many details. They just show their love and support and just like are really happy for you. And those are the type of middle people, category of people that I really enjoy.
I think that was me. I would like to say.
Yeah, no, it was. And then you have the third type of people who don't say anything. It's like, and I don't know why, but that annoys me more than the people who are over the top. But there are people that you just want to let this has happened, and then there's nothing. It's complete silence. Silence. Strange.
Well, old.
Do you think I'm a bit bitter on that?
I think you should live and let live. And
no, I do. No, it annoys me a little bit because part of me is like, I don't want the attention.
Yeah, I understand that.
Just an acknowledgement.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that's fine. Other than that, that's happened. It's lovely. No dates, nothing to announce other than that.
And I'm not the best man. Live on air, folks. You heard it here first.
You won't be you might be in the running for best man.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe. Blimey, someone with an anxiety condition. I'll be a quivering leaf with the speech.
I can see
sweat. It's very warm here in the United Kingdom at the moment. What else has been happening in the world, Craig? Well, we've had a lot of...
Slow down, cowboy. We can have a chat about this, yeah?
We've had a lot of things going on in the film festival world. The film festivals are in full swing. Films like King Richard.
I forgot this was a film podcast.
Spencer. CODA, The French Dispatch.
You're just going to ignore that.
Belfast, but to name a few,
What is wrong with you?
have been announced at the Telluride Film Festival. We've had Venice, Toronto coming up. I've been following this on film Twitter. I suppose the biggest news, Craig, from the festivals would
Is
probably...
it that I've been press accredited to the London Film Festival, but you haven't?
Well, that is a sore spot.
You haven't actually not been approved yet.
So Craig's going to the London Film Festival. I am not, because he's been approved and I haven't at the moment. But we will see what we can do about that. But no, the biggest news from the film festivals is Craig's in a really weird mood this evening. It's quite late. I don't know what's going on. I did give him a Monster Energy. We're not sponsored by energy drinks. We should be, to perk him up. But he seems to be dodging the film festival. Basically, what I wanted to say, Kristen Stewart plays Princess Diana in the biopic Spencer. Loads of Oscar buzz. She's become the bookmakers' favourite to win Best Actress. There's Oscar buzz for Will Smith in King Richard. There's variety of Oscar talk for Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch. Belfast is a film I've heard a lot about. And award season is really beginning to take shape, and I'm hoping to bring you...
Isn't Belfast the Kenneth Branagh?
Yes.
Like semi-autobiographical biopic.
I believe so.
That is.
I
didn't realise he was Irish.
Tumbleweed.
No, but he is. He is.
Yeah,
he is.
Yeah.
No, but but the other interesting thing is I was in Belfast.
Yes, you were. You went to dear listener. He has been everywhere.
I know.
Engaged, Belfast.
I've been on a winery. I've been on a wine tasting tour. I've
Before the show, I think.
It might as well have been. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and this is why we are delayed in getting things out, because I've just been living life to the absolute max. You know, we've been in lockdown for a long time, and then things all happen at once, and you like to enjoy your life, and then we're back to doing this again.
So obviously we
I do enjoy it.
We do want to just apologise for the lack of content, but we have lives. Well, Craig has a life.
You've been locked away. Passersby watching in the window.
I thought when I was like earlier, I spent 10 days alone. You were just gonna be like, well, no difference there then.
No, normally you go out and you see people. You see that strangers in the street and whatnot, and people that you work with,
friends.
Christian churchgoers.
Yes, I do.
Quite
I'm a
regularly.
churchgoer. Yeah.
Your mum, your dad.
We don't need to go into all the people I see.
Anyone else?
That's it.
Okay.
Mum, dad, couple of church friends, and you.
You haven't seen me for a while.
And on that bombshell.
No, we ain't moving on yet.
This is a long intro, Craig. I'm tapping my wrist here. We got to crack on. This is a film review podcast.
All right.
Oh, and in that case, he is going to cue up the theme music, and we're going to kick off the show, unless there's anything else you want to say, with Free Guy. Congratulations again, dearest Craig.
Apologies about that introduction. It wasn't great, was it? It was just very
waffly, controversial. Most people will have skipped over it and gone straight to the film review. So if that's you, welcome.
Welcome to the Is It Worth It film review podcast, week 60. And our first review is Free Guy. This sees a bank teller discovering he's actually a background player in an open world video game. He decides to become the hero of his own story, one that he can rewrite himself. In a world where there's no limits, he's determined to save the day his way before it's too late and maybe find a little romance with the CODA who conceived him. That synopsis was a little weirder than it was supposed to get. But either way, here's a clip from Free Guy.
Hold the fudge. You mean to tell me that nobody snapped up those bad boys? Today's the day.
Like every other day.
I'll be back for those. Oh, he's so close.
This is the greatest cup of coffee of all time. I want to write a song about it.
I want to dance to that song with my body.
I love my life. It's something about finding your lane and just staying in it.
That's why they call them comfort zones. They're so damn comfortable.
Oh,
Mondays, am I right, Joe?
you said it, guy.
So that was a clip from Free Guy, which stars Ryan Reynolds. Where do I begin with this film? Well, it's going to be a somewhat off-the-cuff review, because I don't think it's the kind of film where you can really do a lot of notes, a lot of analysis. I went into the film with mixed expectations. So I'd seen the trailer and I wasn't blown away by the trailer. I'm not a big gamer. I will list the games that I like to play. FIFA, I like a game of FIFA. I've beaten Craig many times on FIFA back in the day.
Yeah, I do. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we used to enjoy a game of FIFA and Grand Theft Auto. That is pretty much the only two games I've ever played on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or whatever the latest games console. So I actually spoke to my manager at work about this. Apparently, a lot of the gamers that feature in this film are actually major YouTube sort of certified streamers who stream and game and do other things.
Yeah.
So that all went over my head. But in terms of what I actually thought of this film, I was really, really surprised. Like, I genuinely enjoyed it. The first thing about it is it's very, very engaging. Like, the actual style of it, the actual themes in the film are engaging. The characters are well fleshed out. But I think what really makes this a good film, and one of the reasons I really enjoyed it, is it's genuinely funny. Like, I laughed a lot during this movie, and there are other films in this show that I think try to be funny, and I didn't laugh. It's also well paced, and I did make a couple of notes, and one of the notes that I put was original. Now, I don't know how true that is. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert as in film as much as I would like to pretend I am. Has this concept been done before? Maybe not. I'll be honest, I don't know. It does pay homage a little bit to things like The Truman Show and Groundhog Day. I got a real Groundhog Day vibe from it. But before I bring you in, what I would say about this film, I don't know why I'm a bit down on myself at the moment. I'm not a film expert, I literally just said there. I'd like to think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, but before I bring you back in, Ryan Reynolds is just perfectly cast in this. Like, this is Ryan Reynolds in a Ryan Reynolds film that was preordained before the very foundation of the earth. Like, when God made the good earth, he made Ryan Reynolds for this film. That's what I have to say about it.
I mean, that's pretty big. That's huge. I think that's a huge thing to say.
Do you know what I mean, though? This was like a Ryan Reynolds role to a T.
And Ryan Reynolds is a huge name at the minute. He has been for some years now. At the moment, he's in every film from The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard to Croods 2, and of course now Free Guy. He's got his finger in every single pie that you can think of, from high-profile businesses. He owns a whiskey company, I think, at one point, or he might have sold it by now. I think it was Aviation or something it was called. Don't know if you saw the adverts for any of those. He's bought a football club over here quite recently. If you haven't heard about that, and some other guy, a famous actor, I can't remember his name.
I had heard about this. Yeah, in the National League, I think.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he's huge. He whatever he turns his hand to, he the news follows, and it's always something interesting and funny, or Ryan Reynolds, very Ryan Reynolds. And this film is that. It is very Ryan Reynolds, and it reminded me, yes, of Grand Theft Auto. In the video game-esque titles, but also Lego Movie. There's this real similarities in terms of the type of character that he is, that he sort of has this moment of realization as to who he is and where he is, and where he's going in life, and that sort of thing. Interestingly, I think the film it was funny. It was very funny. But I don't think it hit all the marks, in my opinion. That being said, it did something to me where I was unexpectedly happy to see the film succeed, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I didn't from seeing the trailer, I thought this was going to be really, really poor. But this was one film that I saw the trailer for pre-lockdown, I think, pre-COVID. This was going to come out ages ago.
Yes, you are right about that.
And didn't. And it wasn't one that I was terribly excited for then. and it wasn't one that I was terribly excited to go back to the cinema for this time. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And I think a shout out must be had to Jodie Comer, who steals the show in the film. I think between her and Ryan Reynolds, they are absolutely brilliant. She's going to be everywhere. I think she's going to be one of the biggest Hollywood stars in the next few years. She's going to be doing some big films. I mean, what more can we say about this film? Well, I think you've got some notes, haven't you?
One of the things that I did make a couple of notes for this, just that there's a real sweet and heartwarming undertone to this film that I wasn't expecting. So I was expecting it to be quite gratuitous and violent and over-the-top humour and in your face, whereas actually the underlying messages are sort of about discovering who you are and your place in the world and where you fit in society was just really good. And there was one of my favourite scenes was where Ryan Reynolds' character goes into a coffee shop and he realises he's not this, I forget what it's called, first person player. What's it?
Oh, an NCP or something. No, that's a car park, isn't it? NPC. Yeah, non-player character. And he always orders the same coffee. And he goes against that and orders a different coffee. And the person behind the barista nearly has a heart attack. Happened in Cineworld the other day. I always go for an iced black Americano. And I just said, I'll have an Americano. And she said, no ice? Just this look of horror on her face. And it's true. We broke the AI.
we get into these rhythms and these routines, and there's an undertone and there's a message about sort of pursuing your dreams and breaking off the shackles of society. Taika Waititi plays this very over-the-top villain that only Taika Waititi could play.
Definitely.
With very sort of...
Antoine.
Yeah, on the nose dialogue. There are issues with the film. It's a little bit clunky at times, but overall, I wasn't expecting to enjoy this, and I really, really did. And like I said, I don't think it's one you can go into too much detail with.
No.
But it's one that really surprised me.
There were some really good crossovers with other films and other games and stuff. And one surprising moment was where there was a Marvel Disney crossover. Of course, Free Guy is owned, or was a 20th Century Fox or 20th Century Studios production, which is obviously owned by Disney, so they were allowed to have that kind of crossover. I don't know if anyone saw the latest trailer for the film, which dropped, which had this sort of interview with Ryan Reynolds playing Deadpool, possibly. There was that in there, wasn't there?
They played this before the film.
Yeah.
Which was really weird, I thought. They had an advert for the film I was watching before the film. It was just like, okay,
yeah,
I'm about to watch this.
So it was like, this is Ryan Reynolds, but then they had Dude, who is a character in the film, who is a version of Guy in the film. The trailer was great, but that trailer didn't spoil the film, I don't think, and I think that was really well done, really good piece of marketing, which is unusual for these sort of films. They tend to spoil, or they tend to misguide. And that's something where Marvel does something quite well. They always seem to subvert the viewer with their trailers. They always throw spanners in there that throw you off, and when you see the actual film,
hello, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen it?
Well, the trailer, yes.
You've seen the new Spider-Man trailer? It looks incredible.
It looks mind-blowing, if I'm honest.
It does. Whilst we're on that train of thought as well, though, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I can't wait to review that one with you.
Okay, thanks for that.
That's all right. Yeah.
That'll be on the next episode of Is It Worth It?
I have seen it. I saw it yesterday, and I really can't wait to review that.
I have not seen it. It's one of the very few films I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of films recently since I came out of quarantine, and that's one I'm due to see tomorrow, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. Should we get to the questions?
I think we should.
Okay.
Craig, Free Guy, is it worth it?
Yes, I do think Free Guy is worth going to see in the cinema. I think it's a great family outing. Reminder, it is a 12A. There is some violence in the film, but a lot less than we were expecting. It's one that will surprise you with some of the more sentimental moments within the film, as well as all of the exciting references to gamers that your children will undoubtedly know, whereas us oldies will certainly not. But nonetheless, we will get a kick out of it. I'm 30, David, and so are you.
That's not old, Craig. We could have listeners in their 90s.
Imagine that. David, Free Guy, is it worth it?
Look, for everything that Craig just said, yes, it's worth it. I think it's funny. It's got a real sort of sweet, heartfelt, warm undertone to it. It is a 12A, so it's not as sort of, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows. I certainly probably wouldn't take anyone less than 10 to it. In my opinion, but yeah, it's a really solid film, and it's just a good lord, that absolutely scared the life out of me.
I pressed the wrong button.
It's just, stop pressing buttons. It's a good film. Go and watch it in the cinema.
And that was the actual button that I was supposed to press.
Will you leave that in?
Might as well.
Oh, what a shame. So, our second review on week 60 of Is It Worth It, the film review podcast, is The Suicide Squad. The government sends the most dangerous supervillains in the world, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, King Shark, Harley Quinn, and others, to the remote enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese. Armed with high-tech weapons, they trek through the dangerous jungle on a search and destroy mission with only Colonel Rick Flag on the ground to make them behave. Craig has kindly sourced a clip. I haven't heard it, so I'm looking forward to it, so let's take a listen.
Robert Dubois. He's in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
I'm not joining your Suicide Squad.
We'll see.
My court date is coming up. And Miss Waller said maybe you could help me out.
You're flexing in my door!
Everyone stand down.
Miss Waller, I don't...
Stand down!
I wouldn't take such extreme measures if this mission went more important than you could possibly imagine. Are you in or out? Good. Let's meet your team.
It's okay, I'm not okay.
Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities.
I need to feel the raindrops on my head, on my head.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Had to go number 2.
So that was a trailer clip from The Suicide Squad. Where do I kickstart with this? Blimey. I suppose let's start off from the very top. James Gunn is on the directing seat and writing seat for The Suicide Squad. It's not a film that I expected James Gunn to take on, simply because he is the MCU. He is part of Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's the director of Guardians 1 and 2 and soon to be 3. So for him to come over to the Suicide Squad onto the DC universe was a bit of a surprise, but there was a bit of a falling out with James Gunn and Disney when a tweet resurfaced. I don't know if you heard about this, and he was thrown off Guardians 3. And then I believe he took on the Suicide Squad.
Oh, wow.
But then he was reinstated because the entire cast of Guardians 3 said they wouldn't do it unless he come back. So, I mean, the tweet was very old and it was very silly, and he apologised.
Yeah.
And, all very silly. Anyway, so this is, again, not to be confused with Suicide Squad. This was David Ayer's 2016 failure of a movie, which actually starred Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Will Smith was Deadshot instead of Idris Elba in this reincarnation in James Gunn's version. We have Viola Davis reprising her role as Amanda Waller, and there are various other characters that didn't make the grade, and those that did had some slight changes in actors and actresses. It's all very strange, this sense of having to almost remake a film, but not remake a film. Where does this fit in with the wider DC universe that we have, or DCEU, or DC? Was it DC? Yeah, they call it DCEU, DC Extended Universe is how it goes. All of these acronyms and drives me mental.
ABC.
Easy as not DCEU. Honestly, it drives me absolutely bananas. I believe Rick Flag, who is or Colonel Rick Flag, has the same actor from the original Suicide Squad reprising his role, and it's. Let me just try and find who is playing him. It's Joel Kinnaman, who plays Rick Flag, and he does reprise that role, and it's interesting because in James Gunn's version, Rick Flag takes on this more. I don't know. The role becomes more suitable for him. The character is way more emotionally expanded and a lot more well-rounded. And the film, whilst I know for you, David, the film takes on a life of its own in a way that this is probably displeasing to you. In fact, I know it is, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it. It's vastly 150 times better than the David Ayer cut of his movie. And when I say a David Ayer cut, it wasn't David Ayer. Well, he contests that Warner Brothers edited his film down quite considerably, and there is a version of his version of the film out there that is significantly better. Do I think that film would be significantly better? I don't think so. I think it was plagued with problems from the very start. I think it wasn't. They tried to make it like Guardians from the trailer that was originally cut for that film. They failed, so they got the director of Guardians in to make a film like that. How it all fits in, though, just
good luck.
Honestly, I mean, we've got The Flash coming out sometime next year, I think, which has Michael Keaton reprising his Batman. We've got Matt Reeves' Batman with Robert Pattinson in that leading role.
Yeah.
You've got Ben... What's his name?
Be a bit more specific.
Not Ben Stiller, because I can't imagine him. Ben Affleck. Yeah, Ben Stiller playing Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman in numerous Batman films, and possibly reprising that Batman in another film. It's all over the place, and it's shoddy. It's so bad. But this, as a standalone movie, for me, was incredibly entertaining. I am one that... I mean, I'm in the league of people that are singing this film's praises, was hugely entertained by it, acknowledges that there are some problems with it. However, it made me laugh from the very beginning. I knew it wasn't a serious film, but was entertained, engaged, and thought it was a well-made film. This is where you step in.
Yeah, you see, I couldn't disagree more, and I've thought a lot about what to say about this film, and I think it's important to note, I know Craig isn't a fan, but I am in a minority when I say this, and I genuinely mean this. I absolutely hated this movie, and I really mean hated it. Like, I hated everything about it, and I am in a minority. From 341 critic reviews, it gets 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 82% from the audience from over 2,500 reviews. Critically, and specifically critically, 91% is a very, very high score for a movie of its type. It gets, it's praises sung by the audiences. So I went in with very, very high expectations. I was in mentally a pretty good place, up for a laugh, and I don't know what it is about this film, and I can't pinpoint it. So if Craig thinks we're going to have this argument where he says, well, the cinematography was great, and I go, well, the cinematography was bad, and then he says about this was great, and I go, no, that was bad. It's not going to be like that, because I can't pinpoint what I didn't like about this film, because I didn't like anything about the film at all. I wasn't invested in the characters. I really didn't laugh. So people around me were laughing. Admittedly, some jokes fell flat. I'm sure it was the same in your screening as well.
Yeah,
although that is contested. I've listened to other people review this movie and they say that they were laughing throughout. I just didn't get it. I don't know what about it I didn't get, but I just didn't get it. I thought the jokes weren't funny. I didn't like the over-the-top very gratuitous violence. I thought it was quite tasteless at times.
That's the thing, David. This is a film that is called The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Already, to begin with, you know what you're getting. We know that these are... They're not heroes. They are supervillains. These are people who have done bad, and yet they are somehow managing to actually find an emotional connection with each other. And yet, granted, they're being forced to do something here. But but the good within them does seem to prevail and shines through. I mean, there's one particular scene that takes place on a bus that I thought was really, 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 really good. There's actually this will hark back to a film that we will review in the future, and a film that we have already reviewed. So Nobody has a scene that takes place on the bus that has some amazing action and subverts you, because you just have this unexpected thing take place on this bus. I was unexpected in The Suicide Squad when this bus scene took place, because I didn't expect such a huge emotional pull to happen, with a flashback that takes place starring Taika Waititi, as well as the Ratcatcher and his daughter, the Ratcatcher 2, were in that scene, and it was quite pulled on the heartstrings a little bit, and it mostly took place with Idris Elba's character, Bloodsport, and I thought, actually, this is cool. There's some reason behind why these people are in these positions and what they're doing about it, and there is motive behind a lot of what's going on here. That being said, as well, the future film that I will talk about, where a bus scene takes place, is second time to mention this, Shang-Chi, should I say, get that correct. There is a bus scene on that, David, I can't wait for you to see.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to reviewing it.
I wish we reviewed it on this episode.
I hope I like it.
So do I. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot to like about this film, and I think there's more to like than there is to dislike. Yes, there is some things that go way over the top, and to the point where it's a little bit silly, but it's still really enjoyable. Like, you do have to be, I think, in the real right frame of mind to be watching this film. I don't think there's any better place to sit than the cinema.
I totally agree with that statement.
Seeing a 50-foot starfish on the screen.
It's bigger than 50 foot.
It's probably a lot bigger.
Thousands of feet.
Probably.
It's the biggest starfish I've ever seen. It's huge.
It is a ridiculous character in the film. I suppose it's a character, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is a character, yeah.
But I think this is like a million times better.
Why did I feel sorry for that starfish?
I mean, I did as well. I felt some empathy there.
I mean, that was the only real emotional heartstring that was pulled, was for a giant, massive, alien invading starfish,
aquatic space fish.
I mean, no, sorry, I shouldn't mess around. I've spoken to a few people, and people say the same thing, that don't take it too seriously, David. Take your film critic hat off and go in with the popcorn and enjoy it. And I really did try. I don't like giving bad reviews, and I certainly don't like making myself look a fool. The Rotten Tomato scores are very, very high. The critics have raved about this film, but I genuinely, when I was watching this, thought, am I watching the wrong film? Because I came out and I read some articles, including articles from the likes of, I think it was The Guardian, that gave it a great review, and I listened to other podcasts that I enjoy listening to in my private time, and they gave it rave reviews, and I listened to the arguments they put forward, and normally podcasts I listen to, and I agree with these people, I just couldn't disagree more with them. I really didn't like this film, and like I said, I wish I could sit here and give you concrete evidence and reasons why, but I just can't. And maybe that reflects badly on me, and maybe I look like a fool, and if I look like a fool, I apologise.
I'd love for you to go and see it again.
But honestly, Craig, it is I can't walk out of cinema screenings. I can't.
Not allowed.
You'd
be fired.
Our job is to go out of our way to see the films, even the bad ones, so the listener doesn't have to. But I wanted to walk out. Like, I really didn't like this film. There was a film I was in a couple of nights ago. I won't say what it was. I'll save that for a review on the next show. An elderly couple walked out. I felt really sorry for them. There's nothing worse than going to the cinema and being disappointed and having to leave. But no, I really didn't like it. And it's not like I've come round to the superhero genre much more on the MCU side than the DCEU, however the bloody hell you say it. But no, this I just did not like this film at all. And if you want concrete reasons
that's
why,
okay. That's okay, but you do have to back it up with some reasoning behind what there was that you didn't like about it in some essence. Like what was there that you were disappointed with, or you didn't
I felt no connection to the characters, so no fear of them. They have this, it's no secret, they have this chip in their head that if they go against the orders of Viola Davis's characters, they'll have their head blown up. I had no real, I was like, blow them all up, blow their heads off, get it over and done with, I'll go home. I've got a slow lamb shank in the oven that I need to attend to. Do you know, I didn't engage with the characters. When people were laughing, I wasn't laughing. I just didn't like it, Craig.
I'm surprised. I did think this would have been more of your sort of film in the sense that it was just pure gratuitous chaos and entertainment, and it was that. Like, it didn't need you to do anything other than just watch it and be entertained. And
are you not entertained?
Wow, that was weird.
That's the first thing that came into my head.
Yeah, it was the first thing that came to my
Russell
head.
Crowe, Gladiator.
But yeah, no, you know what? I've said everything that I could to say what I liked about it and why I liked it, and I would love to see more from this universe. I know that there is going to be a John Cena spin-off. Yeah, I mean, it's not John Cena playing John Cena, it is literally John Cena playing his character within the film, but I don't know what he's playing. I've forgotten. Peacemaker it was, wasn't it? With his ridiculous tin can head and whatnot outfit.
At least he didn't zip wire across the whole of a major European city.
Exactly, like he did in F9. I mean, I think that was a terrible film.
Well, we spoke about this off air, didn't we? I would rather watch F9 than Suicide Squad.
But how does that suspend your belief more than this? I don't understand. Like, this film, right, has more groundedness within it than the
A giant alien starfish is more grounded.
I mean, because that's
F9.
not beyond the realms of impossibility, because
come on.
because just because we haven't seen something like that before, an alien race, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, does it?
But starfish, really?
But John Cena, like, traveling across the whole width of wherever it was, London or Glasgow or whatever, and that's just ridiculous. And Vin Diesel becoming a superhero in a film franchise where he wasn't even superhuman before.
Look, F9 was ludicrous, but are you saying that it's more likely for a giant alien starfish to invade planet Earth than for a man to be able to zip wire across a city?
For across the entire face of the city?
That was ludicrous, but your argument is flawed.
I don't think it is.
I didn't like the bad guy. I felt sorry for this giant starfish. I was just really disappointed with it, but I will agree with Craig. If you're going to see this, there is no better place to see it than the cinema. The big screen, the surround sound, it's got a lot of vivid colours. I will say the costume design in it's good, the hair and makeup. I kind of like the shark.
Do you know who that was?
I thought he was cool. We haven't asked the questions yet.
No, I know. But do you know who he was played by?
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
I did know that, yeah.
Yum, yum.
I mean, what can you say? A talking shark with hands, a giant starfish.
Me hungry.
Yeah, thanks for that, Craig.
Yum, yum.
The joke's wearing thin. It was never funny in the first place.
Yes, it was.
But look, I'm willing to be honest and open with the listener and say I just didn't like it, and I hope I've given you some reason as to why.
A little bit. So, David, The Suicide Squad, is it worth it?
Look, I genuinely don't think this film is worth seeing. I just did not enjoy it from start to finish. I didn't like the humour. I didn't like the character development. I didn't like the overall premise. Look, maybe, and I am worried about this, Craig, I will be honest, I am worried that I'm just becoming dead inside and too snobbish and too critical and too looking too much into stuff that doesn't need to be looked into. So I will say, if this kind of film is your cup of tea, I think you might enjoy it. And if you want to see it, go and see it in the cinema. But for me, it's a big no-no. But hey, I'm in a minority, and I probably look an idiot. People are probably listening to this going, that man, that bald fraud, what an idiot. Craig, for you, the Suicide Squad, is it worth it?
Yes, I do think this is very much so worth seeing, especially in the cinema. I think it's brash, it's bold, it's colourful, it's entertaining, it's funny. It has some heart. It doesn't have all the heart, like David really said that it had no heart, but I think that does have heart in places. That bus scene in particular really did pull at the heartstrings. And I think it was fun, really fun, and very enjoyable. I took my brother to see it. I watched it once in the morning. I told my brother how much I enjoyed it. He said he'll come with me to see it again. I saw it a second time in the evening, and I found it just as entertaining.
Sounds like the worst
on
day
the second watch. Dean absolutely loved it as well, and he said, "I don't understand what David is saying." Genuinely, he said that. He said that he really enjoyed it. He thought it was really well written, really well acted. And
that's why Dean doesn't have a podcast and I do.
I mean, generally, David, you're pretty good at this, but I think this time you're so totally wrong.
Sorry,
this
Dean.
is very much so worth it.
That was funny, come on. For someone who's been doing bad jokes all episode, that was a good joke. Good old Dean. Mom.
So our next review on week 60 is Jungle Cruise, and this sees Dr. Lily Horton enlist the aid of wisecracking skipper Frank Wolf to take her down the Amazon in his ramshackle boat. Together they search for an ancient tree that holds the power to heal, a discovery that would change the future of medicine and the world forever. Let's take a little listen to a clip from Jungle Cruise.
If you look to the left of the boat, you'll see some very playful toucans. They're playing their favorite game of beak wrestling. The only drawback is, only two can play. There's two birds, and those are toucans. I'm saying there's only two can play. Not one, but two can play. The rocks you see here in the river are sandstone, but some people just take them for granted. It's one of my bolder attractions. You know, before this, I used to work in an orange juice factory, but I got canned. Couldn't concentrate. Yeah, they put the squeeze on me, too. That's a good one. I should have opened with that one.
Yeah, so I mean that wasn't the best clip
I think that was a tremendous clip that you sourced there.
Okay, so this film is inspired by the classic Disney theme park attraction. You've been to Disney World, haven't you?
I have.
Have
indeed,
you seen the Jungle Cruise?
I've been on it. I've been on the Jungle Cruise, yeah. Now I'm not sure. This is where I haven't done my research. I'm not sure if the original ride was in Los Angeles or if it was in Disneyland, Florida. But I have been on the one in Florida, and I can. What the film does do well is it really, like Pirates of the Caribbean, a lot of people may not know that the Disney film or franchise, the Pirates of the Caribbean, was, my apologies, that's my phone, was based upon the theme park ride. And if you've ridden the Pirates of the Caribbean, there's a number of, probably one of the most famous bits on the ride is when the guys are in the prison and they're trying to get the dog over with a bone and the dog's got its keys in its mouth. That's in the original ride. And one of the things this film did a great job in was capturing that real family-friendly adventure that the Jungle Cruise ride is. That's what this film did well.
Yeah, and something that I am probably going to get slated for here is possibly saying that this did what Pirates of the Caribbean couldn't do, and that was create something that was actually incredibly entertaining. And I'm not saying Pirates of the Caribbean wasn't entertaining, but this somehow managed to capture my imagination far more than Pirates of the Caribbean. I think this did it brought us actors and actresses in Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, something that Johnny Depp and the rest of like Keira Knightley and those sort of they couldn't bring what this film did. And I much prefer this in the sense that this is a theme park turned movie franchise of some sort. Out of the two, because you kind of have to compare them, out of the two, I think this is so much better done, and I think the production design says a lot about it as well. And the production design was by Jean Vincent Puzos. If I said your name wrong, Puzos. I should get sacked for this. Who built the set? He built the set in Hawaii. But a little fact here: they wanted to shoot it in the Amazon. But to shoot the plates for the green screen and the backdrops, it would have taken them so much longer than actually building a set in something that looked quite similar in Hawaii. So they did that, and that really managed to I think, boost the way that the actors interacted with the sets and the way that they interacted with each other. And it just sort of made everything more tangible. Because it is tangible. It is a real life, amazing set. And what you would see is them go through doors and come out the other side of the door in real time, in real life. And that doesn't happen in a lot of these films. And it certainly didn't happen in Pirates of the Caribbean, because a lot of it was shot on plates or on green screen. And so a plate is basically a pre-recorded backdrop filmed and then put in on top of the green screen to make it look real. This doesn't have a whole lot of that. It does have it, but it's much smaller in terms of the scale of it. The sets are just so much more real, and in location and on set and in place. And for me, that boosts the whole production tenfold for me. As I've said already, I've really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like for me, what I liked about this film is that it is that fun, family-friendly adventure, and it's just really, really solid from Disney. I'm glad you mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean, because I got a real Pirates of the Caribbean and the Mummy kind of vibe. Brendan Fraser's Mummy, which came out in like 90 something, or maybe even early noughties. I'm not sure, but it's considered not a classic, but it's a bit of a cult classic. People like The Mummy. It's not going to win any awards, but it's sort of that heartfelt family fun. The thing about this film, Craig, is I did put in my notes, it's so predictable, it's so generic, and it's so unoriginal that it has the potential to be flat and uninspiring, and I do genuinely believe that. However, for me, it's saved by those good production values, but it's mostly saved by the genuinely good performances from The Rock, from Emily Blunt, Jake Whitehall, not a huge fan of Jack, I'm so sorry.
It's all right, Jack. Got you back.
Do you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of Jack Whitehall, and I know he does a series with his dad, and I'm not a huge fan of that, but I thought his performance was really, really good. Jesse Plemons as this really over-the-top German bad guy.
Nazi.
He was a Nazi. Well, he actually, I suppose. I should probably be careful and not just call them bad guys. They were pretty horrific.
But he was playing a Nazi.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Paul Giamatti, and for me, this was some of The Rock's best work. Like that clip, I know people will say that's terrible writing, they're bad dad jokes, but the way he delivers them like the dad, badly, but well in light of the kind of role it is. I really enjoyed this film. I was expecting not to like it. I was expecting it to be a bit of a Disney cash cow, in the sense that it's that big summer blockbuster that they know is going to get bums on seats. Even during COVID times, it's going to entice people out to the cinema. And I think it's done all of those things. We haven't got the numbers in front of us, but I think its takings have been reasonable.
I mean, with its simultaneous release on Disney Plus, with premiere access, similar to how Black Widow was, there's going to be a huge loss at box office for that, but it is bringing bums out on seat. Now, again, I mentioned it for the third time. Shang-Chi is another film, but it's not, that hasn't got the simultaneous release like all of these other Disney films, and it's pulling in the box office numbers. It's now the second, or it's the first biggest film, or it's got the most amount of takings this year since COVID, basically.
Okay.
Black Widow in second, and Black Widow obviously had the simultaneous release. So this is only going to go on and make more, because the word on the street with Shang-Chi is that it's brilliant, and people are telling each other that, and people are going to go to the cinema to see it. And the question on everyone's lips are these films worth going to see and worth the risk? Obviously, we are saying whether the films are worth seeing in the cinema, but now we kind of almost have to risk assess that, and we almost have to tell people whether it's worth going to see if you're a bit nervous about going to the cinema, if you're
I understand that.
sort of COVID related. Now, we have to factor that into our is it worth it? Because this can be seen on Disney Plus at the same time. So when I ask you the question, try and factor that in, and bring an answer to that. Is there any more that you wanted to say about this film?
I've said I think the acting's brilliant in it. I love the score. So the score is from James Newton Howard. He's one of my favourite film composers, actually. It's a really good score, and actually a score that I re-listened to subsequently because I'm such a fan of James Newton Howard. So I re-listened to the score, and when you listen to this score, it feels like if you were to close your eyes, I could almost imagine being in Disney World. Like, it just has it's the most Disney score.
Did he score Disney World as well? Is there background music there? Let's start playing unnoticeably.
There's a lot of sound effects like animals in the Amazon and in this kind of stuff, but there's not. I don't think there's a score on the original ride. The weaknesses of the film, I thought some of the CGI was perhaps a little bit ropey at times, and if you were going to criticise it, and this is me with my critics hat on, perhaps the screenplay was lacking in some areas. I'm not going to say lazy writing, but just some parts of it could have been maybe a bit tighter, a little bit sharper. But overall, for the performances, it just felt like a wholesome family meal.
Yeah,
this felt like something that you could really, and to sort of preempt the question you mentioned about COVID. My personal opinions on COVID aside, and is it safe to go out, etc. Is this worth going to see in a cinematic setting? Yes. I know you haven't asked me the question, but in light of that risk, we're always going to have a risk. But in light of that, I think this is worth seeing on the biggest screen possible because it's a fun, warm family film that requires popcorn. It demands popcorn. And
you can buy that and take it home with you, though.
What do you mean?
Popcorn.
Oh. It's not the same though, is it? Out of a bag. It's not hot and freshly popped.
It can be if you put it in the microwave.
What are you doing? We're a film review podcast. We're supposed to encourage people to the cinema.
I know.
Get a bag of popcorn and watch it at home.
Devil's advocate on your side there. What I will say is that something that I thought was quite sweet and tender was Dwayne Johnson saying that he felt like after this film, he'd made it, because when his first film that he ever made was obviously Scorpion King, which a bit ropey, but he was sitting in the cinema at the premiere watching that, and a trailer for Pirates of the Caribbean came on, and he said, I will know I've made it when I make a film like this.
Yeah, okay, wow.
And now he feels like he's made it. He's really made it to Hollywood. But saying that, I think he's made it to Hollywood years ago. I think he's been one of the biggest box office pulls for a number of years now. Him and Ryan Reynolds are like two of the biggest box office pullers at the minute.
Do you know what I would say about this film? It looks like they had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah.
Like, it genuinely looks like they had a lot of fun making it. And the thing about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is he also comes across as a really likeable guy. I saw a video the other day where in and around Hollywood, you can obviously go on tour buses and tour cars and like open top Jeeps, and they'll take you past and they'll be like, I've done it. I've done one in LA. I saw Will Smith's house and like, this is Will Smith's house. I saw an actual video of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson pulling up next to one of these tour buses, wheeling his window down and spending like 2 or 3 minutes talking to people, saying hi, and they were like, oh my God, it's The Rock, I don't believe it. He just comes across as a genuine nice guy. Can he act? If you asked me that question 5 years ago, I'd have probably said probably not. But I've really warmed to him as an actor. We saw him in that film Skyscraper. I can't remember if we gave that a good review. I think we actually said it wasn't half bad. But in this, likeable characters, likeable performances, likeable.
Yeah. And let's ask questions. David, Jungle Cruise, is it worth it?
Yes, it's worth it. Go and see it in the cinema. It's safe.
Okay.
I thought I'd be pretty blunt.
Okay. Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt, yeah. Jungle Cruise, is it worth it?
Yeah, this is definitely worth going to the cinema to see. I think now we're tailing off to the end of seeing it in the cinema. I think it's still available, but screenings will be less and lesser as the weeks go on. If you can get a good screening, go to it. If you can go and support local cinemas, local independent cinemas, go to those. They will still have screenings of that because they're always a little bit behind on getting these releases out. The Odyssey in St Albans should still be showing it. Go and support them. If you're a little bit less than happy to go because of COVID, let me tell you, the independent cinemas have a great way of spreading people out. The tables are well set. You can get yourself a cheese board, a bottle of wine, and really enjoy yourself. If you're going with kids, maybe don't have the bottle of wine, or maybe do. I don't know. But nonetheless, support these cinemas. This is one to go to watch in the cinema, 100%. If you're feeling a bit not comfortable, this is the one to break the ice for.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's our review of, what is it?
Well, the Jungle Cruise.
The Jungle Cruise.
Of course.
Of course.
You're an idiot.
Thanks.
So it's now time for I've Lost Track. It's one of the films on week 60 of Is It Worth It, the film review podcast, and it is old. A thriller about a family on a tropical holiday who discover that the secluded beach, which they are relaxing for a few hours, is somehow causing them to age rapidly, reducing their entire lives into a single day. Yes, that really is the premise for this film. Let's take a little listen to a clip.
Everything's gonna be okay. What's your name?
I'm Trent. This is my sister, Maddox.
How old are you guys?
I'll guess I'm good at this. You're 11, right, Trent?
I'm 6.
No. Really, are you 10, 11?
He's not lying. He's 6.
I'm specifically 6 and a quarter. She's 11.
They're feeling unsafe. There is a lot going on here.
They're playing with us. Let's leave it.
Have you seen my children?
Is everyone trying to play a joke on us?
What? Aren't these your children?
I'm right here, Mom.
So there was a clip for old. Where do I even begin with this film? Because I've not been a fan of our director here for many years. He's somebody who has blown very hot to begin with in his career and then very cold later on. Not to mention films such as The
Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender, thank you. That was something that I've erased from my memory quite sincerely because honestly, one of the worst films that have ever been made, especially when the cartoon version of it is something held in very high regard and something that I've actually watched from very start to end and loved that series, and I felt like it was completely butchered. That film starred Dev Patel in it, who came away unscathed by that film, I think, a little bit.
True.
And did quite well afterwards. This film, however, has a cast that has one possibly rising star within it, or maybe two actually, Alex Wolff and Thomasin McKenzie. These two are should be going far, and I don't think this is going to put a dampen on their career.
No, not at all.
But this film is probably one of the worst films I have seen in the last 2 years.
Ooh.
At least.
Wow. Okay.
The premise of this film, as we said, is that this family, slightly like dysfunctional family underneath the surface, are on this tropical holiday to I don't know where they are, but it's somewhere in the tropics, I suppose.
Well, somewhere warm and nice.
It's very
It's got
nice. Sandy
trees
beaches.
and rocks.
And this hotel seems to entice them to go and spend some time on this very specific beach in such a way that it is obviously incredibly dubious. You kind of realise that this beach is going to be a little bit weird. But in the eyes of M. Night, this beach allows these people to age at such a rapid rate that their lives are literally blown out in front of them within a day. And for the premise of that, sounding that out a little bit, the premise could be quite intriguing. However, the execution of this film is incredibly poor. From what you could hear from that clip, the majority of the directing here and the way that people are talking in the film comes across as very poor. Very wooden, very stiff. And I mean, the cameo M. Night has in this film, he spent more time on his cameo than he did on directing this film, I feel like.
It's a long cameo for M. Night.
It's a huge cameo, but at the same time, it's just like, what will they spend doing? I mean, in terms of like location recce, there's about 4 locations in this film.
Yeah,
there's not many.
Locations at all.
The script and dialogue is just utter tosh.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And the acting is incredibly wooden. The premise of the film is intriguing to begin with, but executed so unbelievably poorly that it's just terrible. It really, really is. The cinematography is just not there. It is genuinely one of the worst big budget Hollywood films that I've seen in a very long time. So, where has the M. Night of yesteryear gone, where he did Signs and...
Well, that's where I wanted to jump in. So I'm a big fan of M. Night's early work. I loved The Sixth Sense. I was a massive fan of Signs. I was a fan of Unbreakable. I also like The Village. That was a bit of a Marmite movie, but I like it. Split, Glass. He's also known for his direction on Wayward Pines. Led to believe that's very, very good. But he did get 5% from critics for The Last Airbender, and that's when the alarm bells started to ring. What did I make of this film? I think Craig is very, very right. I have got a catchphrase which I'll save for later, but this is not good from M. Night, and there's a number of reasons why. Firstly, the pace of the film. It starts okay, but there's nothing that grips the film. There's no, once it starts, there's no injection of pace. It's a very, bar the first 20 minutes, which sort of tries to set the scene and get us to know and like our characters. It's a very one-paced movie. The plot is nonsense, really. Like Craig said, there's a premise there that you could work with. The dialogue, there's a premise there that you could work with, but they don't really work with it. The dialogue is the worst part of the film, I'm afraid. It's a very, very poorly written film, and Thomasin McKenzie is a future Oscar winner, in my opinion. I think she's a tremendous young actor. If you haven't seen her in the likes of Jojo Rabbit, but to name a number of films she's been in, check her work out. It's extraordinary. And then as for the twist, I don't want to say too much other than if you're looking for that big M. Night twist, we don't even really get that. The cinematography was from Mike Giolakis, best known for Us, Glass, and Under the Silver Lake. So he's actually quite a talented cinematographer. The cinematography in Us, Glass, and particularly Under the Silver Lake, we were a fan of that. But here, it's very odd, isn't it? Like, it's got that typical slow M. Night, particularly in Unbreakable, loves you say a word, then the camera pans very slowly to the right, and someone else says something, and then it pans very slowly back to the left. But the cinematography here is very, very weird. I'll
just jump in here. Like, it's shot for the first time since The Last Airbender on 35mm film. All his other films since The Last Airbender, other than this, were shot on digital, and that in theory should give it a different kind of look in terms of style, but it doesn't. It's still a very much an M. Night film in the sense of the way the camera moves, even though it's shot on 35mm film in terms of the film look and stock, makes no difference to the way that the camera moves, essentially. And like you say, the way the camera moves in typical M. Night fashion, it didn't really add much. There was one particular scene. It was actually that clip that we played where the camera is behind the children's heads, and just to sort of show you that something's different here, but you can't put your finger on it because you can't see their faces. And essentially, they've got older, and it was just very, I don't know, poor in terms of camera angle. Like, it wasn't a shot that was typically needed in that sense, because you knew what had happened. You could predict it a mile off because you can hear it, A, in their voices, and B, it was just something that, I don't know, it was very film school.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And there's many shots like that in the film. It feels like it was, I don't know, like the director and the cinematographer were having a bad day together.
Yeah.
Another fact, though, it was shot at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, so people were kind of like socially distancing, they were testing every day, all of that sort of stuff, and that, I think, maybe added to the way that this film has come out. I think people might have been, or the actors and the cast may have had a bit of a difficult time making this film.
Yeah,
and I think it certainly comes across in the way that the woodenness of the acting comes out. It's really strange.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange one, and I want to make it very, very clear that I am a fan of M. Night's work, and in his defence, an analogy, and I put this on my Twitter feed, it's a baseball analogy. I feel like M. Night swings hard at everything. So he's not a lazy film director. He's not someone that isn't committed to his work. That, if anything, he's overcommitted. In his head, he sees this film and he has this vision with this twist, and it's the best film in the world in his head. And when it actually comes to fleshing it out, he doesn't quite manage it. And he's swinging hard, and he's that typical baseball batsman that if you swing hard at every pitch, you are going to strike out a lot.
Yeah.
And when you connect, it's a big home run. But this is not even a home run. This is nowhere near a home run. This is just a straight 3 strikes and you're out. It's very disappointing.
It's interesting because it is an adaptation of a graphic novel.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very poor adaptation, because I feel like M. Night's just added in probably a lot of his own takes, as a director should, of what this film should be and how the story should go and what directions it takes, and I just feel like it's not hit the mark at all, and it's
he needs to go back to basic. He needs to get in essence, a good idea and just make a very solid film. So he needs to stop going for these crazy, ludicrous ideas, make something solid and get people back in the cinema. Because this did go to #1 in the box office.
But that's because there wasn't much else in.
Yeah, and it is because M. Night still holds that. Because when you see from the director of The Sixth Sense, Signs, Unbreakable Glass, it sucks people in. But people's patience, and I've seen this on film Twitter, follow a lot of critics and people who are big about film, they're just saying the patience now with M. Night is just starting to wear thin. He's made a lot of bad films recently, and you know, we'll get onto the question very, very shortly. But would you like my catchphrase?
Go on then.
So bad, it's sad. And I genuinely mean that. As a big M. Night fan, a real fan of his early work, I remember seeing an article that was reshared on Twitter where he was called the next Steven Spielberg, the next big thing in the director's world. It's sad to see such a fall from grace, really, because this, let me, not beat around the bush, this is really bad filmmaking.
Yeah.
And it's a really not very enjoyable film.
He's got a very talented cast here.
Yeah.
From Rufus Sewell to Thomasin McKenzie to
the whole cast is very good.
The whole cast have in their lives made some fantastic movies and have shown their abilities. Thomasin McKenzie's got a brand new film coming out fairly soon, Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright's new film. Matt Smith is in that. Anya Taylor-Joy, who actually coincidentally is someone else who's worked with M. Night before and actually came across very well in Glass and Split. She was in Glass? Yeah, she was in Glass as well, wasn't she? And some part of me says that it's the script that's poor, it's the directing that's poor that has allowed that to happen. Some actors and actresses can handle that and somehow make themselves look better than they are. Thomasin McKenzie didn't come across very well in this film, but I don't think any of them did. I don't think any of them.
I thought she was sort of a shining beacon in it. I mean,
she was better than most. But the screen time that she had was very little, and her character seemed very non-committal to anything that was going on there.
Yeah.
No real consequences to what's going on. It just felt very, I don't know. And because, she's trying to portray a 12-year-old essentially, and she becomes 16, 17, and then gets older and older and older and older. And that mentality doesn't change if you're 12 years old in your head. And for her to try and portray that, the direction needs to be there. It really does. You need to be able to get in the head of that person and really tell them what you want. And I don't think M. Night really knew what he wanted from his cast. He may have screened films of inspiration to them and just confused them. He may have
It's a very confused piece.
It is hugely confused. M. Night is hugely confused, and I think it confused the cast, and therefore it's confused his audience, because I'm confused as to why he's still making films at the minute, because, well, it's gone downhill for a very long time, and I'll be surprised if he gets more funding going forward. I'm sure he will, but I wouldn't bet on him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, his filmography just popped up there. Lady in the Water, I just saw that. That was really bad. I mean,
this is when things started to go downhill, I think, for him. Lady in the Water, The Happening, Last Airbender, After Earth, The Visit, Split, Glass, Old.
Split and Glass were okay, but the Happening was pretty dire
Split,
as well.
Again, great concept. Poor execution. James McAvoy saved it because of the way that he can act. Glass, I thought, was terrible.
Do you know what? I've seen so many films, I can't remember our review of Glass.
Well, I
don't think
great.
it was terrible.
It was pretty bad.
Well, the review or the film?
The reviews. Well, I think we both said that it was pretty poor. I think you enjoyed it more than I did.
Yeah, I think I did from memory.
But yeah, no. Let's ask questions.
Cool. Craig, for you, Old. Is it worth it?
No, I don't believe this film is worth going to the cinema to see. I don't even think this is worth renting on at home streaming services. I don't think it'll be worth watching when it does come to streaming services, of which like Netflix and Amazon are the like, where you have paid a monthly fee to go and watch as many films as you like at home. If it comes on there, I don't even think it's worth watching there either. So, unfortunately, this is a really big thumbs down for me. Yeah. David, you? Old? Is it worth it?
No, I think Craig is absolutely right. One, it's not worth the price of a cinema ticket. Two, I don't think it's worth watching on Netflix or Amazon. What I would recommend is go and watch The Sixth Sense. Go and watch Signs, The Village, some of Unbreakable, some of M. Night's early work. M. Night, I'm still a big fan of yours. I still have hope for the future. But no, Old was, unfortunately, so bad, it's sad.
So bad, it's sad.
It makes me sad, Craig, because I really like him as a man and as a director, but this is just poor.
Is he your mate?
I would like to consider him a friend.
M. Night, sort it out. Okay, so the next review here is Stillwater. I'm going to go for a little bit more of a... Well, it's just me on my own here, so I'm going to go for a bit more of a... just like a little slight conversation with you about this film. I'm not going to be too critical in the sense of what I'm talking about here and how it's going to be reviewed. I don't know if I can get that across very well.
Yeah. That's cool.
Keep it quite casual.
It's live. We'll go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I will tell you guys what this film was about. I do have a synopsis here. It says, unemployed roughneck Bill Baker travels from Oklahoma to Marseille to visit his estranged daughter, Allison. Now, imprisoned for a murder she claims she did not commit. Now, Allison seizes on a new tip that could exonerate her and presses Bill, her father, to engage her legal team. But Bill, eager to prove his worth to her and regain his daughter's trust, takes matters into his own hands. He is quickly stumped by the language barriers, cultural differences, and a complicated legal system that is until he meets a French actress who is mother to an 8-year-old daughter. Together, these unlikely allies embark on a journey of discovery, truth, love, and liberation. This sees Matt Damon in the title role here of Bill Baker. I do have a clip. Let's take a little listen to that, and I'll come back in with telling you exactly what I think of Stillwater.
I've learned something new, actually. It's helped me a lot. Something called Mektub. A nurse told me about it. It's about acceptance.
Acceptance of what?
Your fate. It's helping me to stop struggling so much. Stop questioning everything. You just embrace your fate and learn to live in peace with it. It's a Muslim idea. It's about letting go of all of that shame and guilt that pushes you down and keeps you down and makes you feel so powerless. And that's how I felt for a really long time. Powerless and forgotten. And that makes living really hard. You know what I mean?
But you're innocent. So we gotta keep fighting.
It doesn't matter that I'm innocent, Dad. It's not about justice. It's about finding peace.
Okay, so that's a clip from Stillwater. You can hear the characters there. Abigail Breslin is playing the daughter and Matt Damon in that scene. This comes from writer and director Tom McCarthy. He's the director of Spotlight and Win-Win, amongst some other great works. This film took me a little bit by surprise when I discovered that this was loosely based on the true story of the Amanda Knox case, which saw her imprisoned for a really lengthy time, despite protesting and maintaining her innocence. Now, this is where it becomes loosely based, because obviously her character in this film is portrayed by, she is portrayed by Abigail Breslin, who ends up having a similar experience to Amanda Knox here. She's imprisoned, what appears to be wrongly, for the murder of her roommate, who for some reason in this film it goes down a bit of a love interest role with those two people. Don't know whether that is to try and separate it from this real life case, to try and say that it's not that, but all of the press and even the press release mentions the Amanda Knox case as inspiration for this movie. Do I believe that then, in theory, is in poor taste? I do. I think before going to see it, I possibly didn't think that. But then after coming across a Twitter post by Amanda Knox herself that comes across quite furious in the sense that what's going on here feels quite wrong. I will read some of this. It is quite lengthy. I would pester you to go and find this thread on Twitter, because I think it is worthwhile reading and seeing whether or not you can compare, contrast, and come to an agreement with her. It certainly made me reflect. Anyway, let me read this to you. It says, "Does my name belong to me, my face? What about my life, my story? Why does my name refer to events I had no hand in? I return to these questions because others continue to profit off my name, face, and story without my consent. Most recently, the film Stillwater. The film by director Tom McCarthy starring Matt Damon is loosely based or directly inspired by, and those are in quotation marks, the Amanda Knox saga. Again, in quotation marks, because she is quoting their Vanity Fair, and that's how Vanity Fair put it in a for-profit article promoting a for-profit film, neither of which I am affiliated with. I want to pause right here on that phrase, the Amanda Knox saga. What does that refer to? Does it refer to anything I did? No, it refers to the events that resulted from the murder of Meredith Kircher by a burglar. It refers to the shoddy police work, and refusal to admit their mistakes that led the Italian authorities to wrongfully commit and convict me twice. In those 4 years of wrongful imprisonment and 8 years of trial, I had near zero agency. Everyone else in that saga had more influence over over events than I did. The erroneous focus on me by the authorities led to the erroneous focus on me by the press, which shaped how I was viewed. In prison, I had no control over my public image, no voice in my story. This focus on me led many to complain that Meredith had been forgotten, but of course, who did they blame for that? Not the Italian authorities, not the press, me. However, it was my fault that the police and media focused on me at Meredith's expense. And the result of this is that 15 years later, my name, which is associated with this tragic series of events of which I had zero impact on, and Meredith's name is often left out, as is the burglars. When he was released from prison recently, this was the New York Post headline. I haven't included that, but her Twitter thread goes on a quite lengthy tirade about how this is very poor, and it ultimately summarizes though with her asking Tom McCarthy to have a chat about why this story went down the road that it went. And as I said, it went down a road that I don't know, almost not glorified, but it showed this person to be a victim and not a victim at the same time. It showed her to be someone who was in love with this person and in rage of jealousy committed a crime but never admitted it, but always protested her innocence, etc., etc., and has somehow been linked back to Amanda Knox, and mainly because the inspiration there for it has appeared. And I don't like the fact that it's gone down the road of being as bold to claim that it has been inspired by it and then leave out and omit so many details about this story that, or at least her story, that has painted her in bad light for all this time, because it's truly a story about her, but isn't at the same time. And I can understand her feelings on it being so poorly and done in poor taste. But at the end of the day, the story is told from the perspective of the father and what the father goes out to do and his faults. And he's such a stoic character in this film that it becomes very much so about him and his duty to his daughter to free her. But then almost it doesn't. Then there's also a love triangle that appears, and there's also this strange sideway stories that spin off the main story here, and its focus is very misled and very, I don't know, it seems to lead us down roads that I didn't expect it to go down, and I feel like this isn't Tom McCarthy's best work, certainly not. I do feel like it's accidentally gone down the road of being seen as inspired by a story that is of complete tragicness, and borrowed a lot, well, quite heavily, I'd say, on her likeness and her story, and without even conducting simply an interview with her to garner more insight into who she is as a person and maybe how she might feel about this story. And it is simply profiting off the back of what's happened to her, but more importantly to a young girl who was murdered, that barely gets a mention in this story about who she is, because it's all about the other people. It's all about those that are alive and well, and I don't know, trying to make a thriller out of it, and it feels wrong. It does feel wrong. And that's not to say it's a bad movie, but it just doesn't feel like the best Matt Damon, Tom McCarthy film you could have possibly seen. And I feel like that is unfortunate. I don't think it's still playing at the bigger cinema chains, but it certainly should be playing at more local ones. I don't know if that might be incorrect now, as of today. But when I last looked, it was having a few more screenings left at the Odyssey and the Rex. Those of you that are local in Hertfordshire, I'm sure it'll be playing in other local independent cinemas too. Whether or not this was worth it, I think it was worth a watch, because I do feel like it will get you more involved in the real story, but what that inspired it and educated about it. Did you know about Amanda Knox's case at all?
I will be honest, no.
So it was all over the news about 15 years ago. That it was really awful. Amanda Knox basically was in prison for a very long time for something that she didn't actually commit, and that had been proven in the end. And this doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't answer any questions about Amanda Knox, but it really does rely heavily on her story in terms of inspiration for this story.
Just that tweet alone, you've got someone that's clearly very, very angry, and it's just the bit at the end where it says ultimately she asked Tom McCarthy to have a chat with her about why this story went down the road it went. You know, that's sort of a big alarm bell really ringing there about sort of exploiting a story for profit, like you said, with that and the
because it's not even trying to tell the real story or anything like that. It is literally just inspired by
true events, which is always difficult when you see that at the start of a film, because inspired by true events is better when it says based on a true story.
It doesn't even say at the beginning of the film that no, but this is in a lot of the press materials. It's inspired by some French, I believe some French movies, as well as claiming to be inspired by the Amanda Knox saga, as it actually says that. Which I do feel is very disrespectful to the people that have actually been hurt in this story or in that story alone. Not to mention Amanda Knox, but Meredith as well. I do believe it would be worth seeking out if you are interested in understanding a perspective that hasn't been seen before, in the sense that someone has taken inspiration from a story and exploited it, and just seeing where these stories match up from the true events to the non-true events, and just seeing whether or not I'm going down the right road and what my thought process is in this distasteful, or is it not distasteful? I don't know. It would be great to hear from you, the listener, if you have seen Stillwater and what your thoughts are. You can email the show. My mail is worthit@isitworthitpodcast.com, or you can message us on various social medias. Look at us or find us on Twitter @FilmIsWorthIt, or Facebook and Instagram. Just search for us on there. You shall find if you seek. Anyway, so that was my take on Stillwater. We're going to go just zipline straight into our last review. We don't even need to press a button, do we?
No, not necessarily. I really enjoyed listening to that. I unfortunately, I couldn't catch Stillwater because I obviously caught COVID. But on the back of that, really, really interesting thoughts. I'm definitely going to give it a watch and do a bit of research as well, which I think sounds the right thing to do. On to is this our final film? It's been a long old episode. It's 4 a.m. here now in the studio. It's not really. What time is it?
It's 10:30.
10:30. Oh,
I did actually have to have a quick look at the clock and think, Christ, what time is it? We've done bad.
That's good. That's a good effort. Sometimes we go early into the hours of the morning. Anyway, the next film we are reviewing is from Apple TV Plus. It's an Apple TV Plus original. It's called CODA. What's this film about? Well, Ruby is the only hearing member of a deaf family from Gloucester, Massachusetts. At 17, she works mornings before school to help her parents and brother keep their fishing business afloat. I like what you did there. What, very clever.
I didn't like that, unfortunately.
Oh, did you not? No. Well done to whoever did.
Official press material.
But in joining her high school's choir club, Ruby finds herself drawn to both her duet partner and her latent passion for singing. Before we dive into a review of CODA, let's take a little listen to a clip, and Craig presses a button.
There are plenty of pretty voices with nothing to say. Do you have something to say?
Oh, sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah. I get a feeling that I never had before.
You're the girl with the deaf family?
Yeah. I just want to tell you right now.
And you sing. Interesting.
Something's got a hold on me here.
What are you doing next year?
Working with my family.
Let me tell you now, I've got a feeling, I feel so strange. Everything about me seems to have changed.
I've been coaching for Berklee College of Music. I can help you get a scholarship.
So that was a trailer clip for the movie CODA. First of all, we should just add that this is obviously an Apple TV original. It is on Apple TV Plus. David caught this first because he caught COVID. And he wanted to try and watch something that he could actually bring to the table during a remote recording that we were going to do to bring this to your ears as an additional film. And he wanted me to watch it as well.
I harassed Craig to watch it.
He really did.
What I thought of it.
I don't have Apple TV Plus, so for me to go and watch it was going to be a real challenge. But David had sung its praises to me, saying I must catch it, and I was granted access by the wonderful people at Apple for a press screening of it, and I was very impressed by it. David, your praises were to be listened to, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the film yourself, because I know you've written extensive notes.
A few. I wouldn't say they're extensive. There's a few notes there.
What I would say myself is that as somebody who has gone to a foreign country on an adventure almost to work with young children that are deaf.
Of course, yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
this film really resonated with me, mainly because of the deaf aspect of it, and seeing how one person of hearing can affect the other people that are around them in terms of those that are deaf and those that are hearing, and how they can work together to have a better life in a way. And this film really resonated with that. I'm going to let you come in here now and just talk about the film a little bit more.
Well, yeah, so this film resonated with me as well. Obviously, my grandpa, who passed away a number of years ago, was deaf. Had an incredible relationship with him. He actually lip read. He tried sign language, but he didn't really get on with it. So he learned to lip read. So if you spoke quite loudly and slowly, he could read your lips, and we often wrote stuff down and communicated that way. So this, obviously, I've got, living with a mental health condition, I have a soft spot for all kinds of disabilities, but particularly people who are deaf, having been brought up with my grandpa being deaf. And so I had that emotional connection. But the thing that really struck me about this film to start off with was that visually, it was gorgeous. Like the opening scenes of them on the fishing boat was really, really nice. But the first thing you notice about the film is it's really well paced and engaging. Like I thought, okay, so I'm at home, I've got COVID, I'm feeling a bit down, but I'm engaged with this, and it's also really funny. Like I don't know if you got that. Like there were some moments in this film that genuinely made me laugh out loud. But I think what makes this a brilliant film is the fact that we immediately feel connected to the characters. Like I think this is imperative. Like we feel connected to our protagonist. Forgive me, you'll have to get the names up while I talk, because I can't remember the names off the top of my head. But yeah, Ruby, played by Amelia Jones, who learned sign language over a course of 18 months, by the way. I think I will say now she's superb in this, to the point where I don't think it will happen, but there has been some discussion across a number of categories in terms of this film's Oscar chances. I will touch upon that later. I don't think she'll be nominated, but I think there's a discussion there, and rightly so. And another area which I will touch upon briefly now is just the script in this film. So it's an adapted screenplay from a 2014 French film, which I can't remember what it's called, and I did write it down, but I couldn't pronounce it, so I didn't want to embarrass myself. But it is based on a 2014 French film. If you want to seek that out, Google it.
I will give it a go pronouncing it if you want.
Go ahead, because...
La Familia Bellia? Well,
I don't know. I'm really sorry. That may well be correct, but it's a 2014 French film. Google it, and good luck. My French, I was terrible at school. Do you know what? It's one of my biggest regrets, not learning another language, because I think it's imperative to do so. But
I think you're right. Actually,
it's brilliantly written. Tremendously fleshed out characters, and there's lots I want to say about this, and hopefully we'll have a bit of a conversation, and I'll peruse over my notes and see if I've missed anything. But it got me choked up, Craig. And as I've said to you before, I'm a bit dead inside, and I mean that in all seriousness. Like,
I mean, during that time, your body was giving up a little bit, wasn't it?
But no, films don't really tend to make me get that emotional, right? They have to be really, really good. Just Mercy was one of the last films I remember seeing in the cinema with Jamie Foxx that really got me choked up. And this film had me emotional. Like, I wouldn't say it made me laugh and it made me cry, but that would be a catchphrase of the kind of film it is. And I was just so impressed by this movie. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Like, in its essence, it's a really simple coming of age story about this girl who has this aspiration to be a singer, but at the same time doesn't want to let her family down, who have this fishing business,
which is almost like a very usual trope in these sort of films. You know, the young girl wants to go off and be her own person, but doesn't want to leave her family behind, and that's a usual trope. But by throwing in the aspect of this child being a child of a deaf family, CODA, in that sense,
which stands for Child of Deaf Adults.
Deaf adults, exactly that, not deaf family. But nonetheless, it really changes the dynamic of what that trope means and how it's explored and how it's seen, and your anguish for the character Ruby, who you really want to go and succeed in life because she is a sensational singer. She
quite extraordinary voice.
Really, really beautiful and brilliantly cast in this film.
Oh, superb casting.
And the wonderful nature of how this character is a bit of a loner because of the way that she was brought up, almost, because she's brought up by a deaf family, so her speech was affected by that. So when she started school, you know, she was known as the deaf girl because she spoke like a deaf person because that's all she'd ever known. And, you know, that leaded her to not really have very many friends, and the friends that she did have, they're great to each other, but there was only one other person in the school that she was friends with. And so when she finally finds a path that she can make her own and isn't, you know, it's nothing to do with her family's disability in a way.
Yeah.
You want her to go out and succeed, but at the same time, you don't want her to leave her family.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Because you feel like they can't live without her, but at the same time, they can, and you know that they can, but it's like you want everyone in this film to succeed, and you're hanging on every line of what they're saying, what they're doing, what they're signing, and where the story is leading you, because you're so on the edge of your seat because you just want everyone to be happy. And it is such an uplifting film. It is very, very wonderful and brilliantly directed and brilliantly acted. It's certainly an all-rounder. And Apple are very good at picking films that they know will do well in all aspects of what makes a good film.
Yeah.
I think Cherry was the last example of an Apple TV original that was picked up by them. Palmer as well. These are all very, I mean, they all follow.
Palmer was great.
A similar chemistry, don't they?
Yeah. A good quality films, you know.
Good quality films. You know, Netflix buys up everything and anything. They generally succeed in picking some good ones, and the lesser known ones that aren't that great fall to the back. Apple are really picking their stuff. They're filtering out the good and the bad, and they're only taking the good stuff. And it makes me like, it's difficult because I want Apple to succeed in terms of the streaming wars here.
Yeah.
They've got the money behind them to do it, but they're struggling because they just don't seem to have enough content. But if they can find and get more content like this of this standard, I'd be willing to invest a lot more in them. And I think they've really got to get their films out into the cinema.
I would agree. I think the problem is once you go down the route of Apple TV, forgive me if I'm wrong, I don't know the percentage of the people who have Apple versus Android, but you're already cutting out a large...
Well, you can still have Apple TV Plus if you have Android.
Oh, okay.
So that
it shows how ignorant I am.
Apple TV Plus or Apple TV now is installed on most smart TVs now.
Cool.
So you can access it through that. You can get them on multiple Amazon Fire Sticks and all this stuff. They all come pre-installed on it now as a separate app. They were straggling behind in that sense.
Yeah.
For a very, very
that's
long
probably
time.
what I thought. Yeah.
It's not available on every TV. It's only on the latest ones, etc. So I mean, and because of the amount of content that they have that's their own, that they're putting onto Apple TV Plus, they almost need to have it out in the cinema first and then bring it to their. It's really tricky for them, and I think they've really got to make something special happen for Apple TV Plus to succeed.
Yeah.
And the films that they're collecting and putting out there. Netflix have obviously produced a lot of very high standard material that have gone off to the Oscars last year. How many films was it? Over 20 that were up for awards, was it?
I think off the top of my head, Netflix got nominated for something like 40 odd Oscars last year.
Even more than that.
Not necessarily in terms of number of films, but the number of nominations was in the 40s.
Right. So
My Octopus Teacher won documentary from Netflix.
Yeah.
Chicago 7 was a big Oscar player.
So they really are picking up a lot of films, and the genres and types of films that they're picking up are very diverse. Whereas Apple will really seem to be catering for the drama, stoic, coming of age, Cherry, Palmer. They're all very coming of age kind of actual films that,
yes, you're right.
There's this chemistry and depiction of film that they seem to really invest in, and time for them to do something different, I think.
Well, one thing I wanted to say, you talk about the success of Apple TV, and we spoke a little bit about this film. I just wanted to have a tiny little bit of chat about the Oscars. So when you watch this film, did you see this as an Oscars contender? I've obviously done a bit of research into this, so I can share with the listener a little bit about my thoughts on that area. Not too much detail, but for you, did it strike you as an Oscar film? And if so, what categories?
This is really interesting because to me, it had the feel of like a best international film. Like it doesn't have the feel of a best picture winner.
Okay.
I think possibly in maybe one acting category of actress, possibly with
Amelia Jones.
Yeah, Amelia Jones as Ruby Rossi, and I don't really see it going anywhere else, really.
Yeah, I mean, the categories that I think it has a chance in is Best Adapted Screenplay. I think it genuinely has a chance there.
Yeah.
Marlee Matlin, by the way, as we're talking Oscars, just a quick fact for you. First deaf actress to win an Oscar at the 59th Academy Awards in 1987 for Children of a Lesser God. A very moving speech which she gave in sign language, which I watched earlier. There is a bit of awards talk, but believe it or not, Craig, I watched this and I thought, yeah, this has got a feel of a Best Picture contender. Do I think it could win Best Picture? Absolutely not. Do I think it could be nominated? Absolutely. Looked at the betting for Best Picture, and it was actually second favourite to win. So this is that's completely wrong, by the way. The bookmakers have got that way wrong. I think they're got way over the top, too excited. I don't think this is going to win Best Picture, but it has got an outside nomination chance. Ultimately, do I think it will be nominated? Probably not, because it will have come out too early. Big players like The Power of the Dog, House of Gucci and all of that will come out in November and December, and people will forget this a little bit like they forgot about The Five Bloods from Spike Lee. But certainly a film that is rightly in award season contention talk. Fascinating, and Road to the Oscars will be coming out at some point. I am working on it, so do bear with me.
Of course, I mean we're very slow on the main show uptake, to be honest. And
you were going to say something about the Oscars. You not feeling it?
For this film, as I'm really not. I don't see it being in the most categories. I do feel like, yes, it's come out too early. It has the feel like it could be, like in the sense that I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it being at the Oscars. Like, it does have that feel of an international.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that.
Like a foreign picture, it has that feel, which obviously it's adapted from, but it doesn't have that feeling of like a a best picture, what is your typical best picture sort of film. It doesn't have that feeling. So where would it go? Where would it fit in, really? And truly is the one actress award, really, and that's it. And even then, I feel that's a long shot, which is a shame.
You're totally right. You look at the betting, won't go into it. The acting is a long shot. Why the bookmakers have this as one of the favourites to win Best Picture baffles me.
It's to make money.
Well, it is to suck people in. I did tweet Mike and Oscar about that, and they concluded it was to suck people in. But I wouldn't. I think it would be wonderful for this film to get a Best Picture nomination, but I don't think it will happen. But it's in the conversation, and rightly so. As for the questions, are you ready?
Yes, David. CODA, is it worth it?
Yes, look, I think there's a number of films on Apple TV that make Apple TV worth it. Just a little plug for that there. But CODA is genuinely one of my favourite films of this season so far. And what do I mean by that? I mean post last Oscars. I think it's got tremendous performances. It's got a great adapted screenplay. I think the cinematography is wonderful. Honestly, made me laugh, made me close to tears. A real heartfelt, warm piece of cinema that just gives you a big cuddle, and it's what I needed when I had COVID. So that everyone involved in CODA, I thank you. This film is worth it. Go and seek it out.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you, David. I think CODA is one that is definitely worth seeking out. It is on Apple TV Plus, as we've already said. Definitely worth the watch. Yeah, I think that brings us really to the end of the show.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Thank you very much for listening to week 60 of Is It Worth It, the film review podcast. Now, this episode was brought to you by Twinings Tea, Red Bull, and other stimulating
we
drinks.
Shouldn't say what the actual brands are.
I mean, none
it's
of them.
not even Red Bull, actually.
No,
but
it's not, is it?
It happens to be Monster, just a little plug if you do want to advertise or support us. And it was also supported by you, the listeners.
It was indeed. Thank you for being patient and waiting for us to bring you new content. I know it's slow, but as we said, there's been lots of things happening. I'm engaged. Incredible news.
Incredible. Wow.
I never thought that would ever happen to me.
But it's never going to happen to me.
I'm sure it will. Our new website is still partially launched. I haven't had the time to really fix it and get it going.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry.
It looks great, though. I will say that.
Thank you, David. My brother and I have spent many hours trying to get it ready.
I appreciate that.
It's
and as do the listener.
If you want to follow the link in this episode and in the episode description to have a look around the website, tell us what you think of it. Let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. Bear with us though, because it will be done fairly soon.
Feedback is key, so do give us some feedback. And if you'd like to get in touch, tell us about the films you've watched either at home or on the cinema, or like we said about that website, then you can email the show at mymailisworthit@isitworthitpodcast.com. That email address again is mymailisworthit@isitworthitpodcast.com. Or you can follow us on the various social media pages, Twitter, Facebookery, Instagram, to name but 3 we're active on.
Indeed. David, thank you very much for being such a wonderful co-host. For putting up with my terrible jokes this season.
Well, no, and this season. I know. This whole 60 episodes plus specials. Thank you for putting up with No, thank you, Craig, for your friendship, your support. Congratulations. And thank you, dear listener. And we will see you very, very soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. I'm getting married in the morning. And I'm not the best man.